Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio recording episode number 245. We're going to talk about one of the oldest and most used statements, analogies, thoughts. Is it better to rip the Band-Aid off or not? Before we get into that, though, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company.
Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount.
And again, please make sure you take advantage of that EFP20. It's a great way for you to support the podcast and also get that additional 20% savings on an already great product. Also, we'd love for you to become a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We're talking $5, $10, or $20 a month commitment. We've got a great group of patrons that have been supporting us for a long time, but we need some more people to come on board. Let's get some new blood, some new people that want to get involved. If you see value in what we're doing and you want us to be able to keep doing it, please consider becoming a patron. Again, patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. So, Don, it's tryout season for a lot of travel teams. And whether it's tryouts for travel ball, school ball, a college team, whatever it is, the never-ending discussion or argument that I think coaches have with themselves is those players that are sort of on the edge. They're not quite sure they're good enough. You're not quite sure they're the player that's going to fit in with what your team's goals are, talent-wise or whatever it is. Maybe they're just not quite there yet. And so the question is, what's the best strategy? When you have a player like that, to just rip the Band-Aid and cut them and be done with it and not have to worry about it, or to fall into the sentimental side that all of us have as coaches. She's such a great kid. She's such a hard worker. She's so much fun to be around that even though she might not really be capable of playing on your team or playing enough for it to be a really good situation for them, that we keep that player around, and then later on it's like it just drags on, and all of a sudden they're unhappy because they're not playing as much as they wish they were or that their parents think they should.
No, I think that's a tricky one, Tori, for sure, because in my heart, I've always got a place for that player, right? But things have to be right. They have to be the hustler. They have to be the want to work hard person. They have to be a positive in some other way, even though their skills might not be par with the rest of the group. I think there's always a place for those people. But to your point, if they're unhappy because the role that they fill on my squad isn't part of their expectation, then I think that, ripping the Band-Aid piece is probably the best for everybody. Right. But I don't ever want to discount any young athlete's opportunity to shock us.
Right.
Because I've seen it, and we've all seen it in different sports and stuff like that. And that is such a wonderful win for everybody when that happens, or when they're able to contribute in a special time. But again, everything has to happen the right way. Their attitude has to be right. They have to be, satisfied with the role that they're going to fulfill with our group. And, we talk about communication all the time. And if those pieces are okay, I definitely don't mind having a player like that as part of our group. But I think that the quicker assessment and just honest conversation is something that has to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and, as everybody knows, I've always got a story. So there's a girl that played for me when I was coaching at Tennessee Tech, came to me as a high school senior, was going to come to Tennessee Tech no matter what, and had a pretty successful high school career, played a little bit of travel ball, but she wasn't really, like a 24/7 softball kid, and wanted to come out for the team. And we had a really in-depth discussion. We talked about what that would mean for her, the opportunities that she would have, but also the reality of the situation she was jumping into. You've all heard me talk at least a dozen times on Everything Fast Pitch about the very best team I had. Thought that, 5 kids that were on that starting lineup were all kids that came to us as catchers. And over the course of the competition, couldn't all be the starting catcher. So we ended up with the starting right fielder, starting left fielder, starting first baseman, starting third baseman, and a catcher who were all catchers. Well, she was wanting to join that team. So trying to explain to her that, this is how, stiff the competition is going to be for playing time. And, the way the conversation went, she's like, oh, no, I understand, really, good team, a lot of great players. I'm just going to come in and work my hardest. And, whatever happens, happens. If I ever get to play, that's great. If I never get to play, that's fine. I'm going to do everything I can to help this team be successful.
Fabulous.
And I was like, okay, if that's the agreement that we're making, if you understand that, that there's no promises, there's no guarantees that, anything other than that, opportunity to come to practice every day and compete is going to be available. So long story short, freshman year, she did great. Basically did nothing but catch in the bullpen, catch at practice, worked her butt off every single day, was one of the leaders in the strength and conditioning stuff, really just killed it, was an amazing player to have around. Sophomore year, 90% of what she was her freshman year. Still a strength, still a real benefit to the team, still, worked her butt off, but not quite the same level of enthusiasm and passion that she had. At the end of her sophomore year, she had played maybe 5 innings.
Right.
Which, honestly, I felt like I'd done a really good job to get her 5 innings.
In the sophomore season?
In her sophomore season.
Yeah.
And came in at the end of her sophomore year and wanted to know why she wasn't playing more and what happened that she didn't, get to, be the starting catcher. And like, well, you remember 2 years ago when I told you were joining a team that had 5 kids that we recruited that were catchers that were all competing for the catching spot? And you understood.
They're still around.
Yeah, and you understood, well, one of them's a senior. She's our starting catcher. The others are all juniors. And you're a sophomore. So where did you think that, somehow, well, I've been working so hard. I said, no, I understand that. You've done everything. But you've played exactly as much as your situation on our team. And, of course, college team is going to be a little bit different because you're playing to win all the time. There are no pool games or friendlies or anything like that to give players more opportunities. She went from being an absolute number one favorite, hardest working, greatest kid to have on a team kid as a freshman to by the time she got to be the end of her sophomore year, she quit the team and was mad.
Yeah,
and was mad. And I think that that's kind of the moral to the story today. I think that no matter how well-intentioned a player is, no matter how much parents talk about, we just want to be on this team, we just want to be in this environment, we just want to learn, we just want to get better, we'll do whatever it takes. If we don't play, that's no big deal. If I'm a backup catcher or backup third baseman or whatever, I'm just happy to be on the team.
Somebody changed the rules, Tori.
I'm going to be shocked if anybody can really stick to that. Because the player I'm talking about, I thought was going to be the one. And she made it for 1 year and 90% of a second year.
Yeah.
And now, now that's a different environment because it's, practicing every day and all that kind of stuff too. But the same
heavy commitment.
But the same circumstances are still there. It's going to be the same whether it's a travel ball team that practices 8 times all year or, a school ball team that's practicing every day of the week or whatever it is. When a player's skills do not allow them to compete for playing time, no matter how good their attitude is, no matter how much you love having them around, at the end of the day, sooner or later, their skills are going to dictate some of what their payoff is. And if that payoff isn't going to meet their wishes, then we're going to always have problems. So I don't want to ever cut a player before I've given them every opportunity to show that they can do something that's going to make our team better. But if I get to the point where a player isn't going to make our team better, they're going to really have to do an amazing job to convince me that it's good for everybody for them to stay.
Well, and the time that you spend working with these kids, too, is time that we could be putting forth towards something else, right? So that has to make sense, like you're saying. Otherwise, we get discontent as well. And and if we're a part of a team, the goal is to play.
Yeah.
If it's realistically not, in the cards, to rip that Band-Aid, like you said, and just be up front, assess it, and let it be what it is.
And it's heartbreaking when it happens, but it's going to happen. And sooner or later, no matter how much we think we can, suck it up every day and keep working hard and still be positive, if we're not playing very much, staying positive is pretty hard to do. So should we rip the Band-Aid? Well, I don't think you should rip it too fast, but I think when you know for sure it's time, then we should pull it off.
Let it go.
So, all right, so that's going to wrap up number 245. Please make sure you reach out to us with questions, comments, ideas, or suggestions at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. Make sure you support the Anderson Bat Company, and please become a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. They're $49.95 a dozen. And you also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog post. There's tons and tons of information available to you there. So for Coach Don McKinley, our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.